To the Prime Minister's Office, the Minister of Justice, and Minister of Home Affairs. Note: this piece was written by Ustad Bediüzzaman's lawyers with his permission while he was being held in Afyon prison and was sent to the government ministries mentioned. Signed, Sungur. All members of the government who witnessed the proclamation of the Constitution, the First World War, the armistice period, the setting up of the nationalist government, and the Republic know me well. Nevertheless, with your permission, we shall take a look at my life as though on a film. I was born in the village of Nurs in the province of Bitlis. As a student, I debated with the scholars I encountered, and through divine favor, defeating in scholarly debate all who opposed me, I came as far as Istanbul. In Istanbul, winning calamity's fame, a victim of my rival's troublemaking, I was dragged to the lunatic asylum on the orders of Sultan Abdülhamid. On the proclamation of the Constitution, I attract the attention of the government of the Committee of Union and Progress with my activities during the 31st of March incident. I confronted them with the proposal to open an Islamic university in one called the Madrasatü Zehra, resembling Al-Azhar University. I even laid its foundations. On the outbreak of the First War, I gathered together my students and took part in the war as the commander of a militia force. I fought on the Caucasian front and was taken prisoner at Bitlis. I escaped from where I was being held and returned to Istanbul. I was appointed a member of the Darül Hükmetil İslamiye. During the armistice period, I worked against the occupying forces with all my might, and on the victory of the national government, in appreciation I was summoned by it to Ankara, where I repeated my proposal to open the university in Van. The life I had lived up to then had been that of a patriot. I had wanted to serve religion by means of politics. But from then on, I turned my back on the world completely and, in my own words, buried the old site. As the new site, devoting myself entirely to the hereafter, I withdrew from the world. Retiring from social life, I went into seclusion on the hill Yuşa Tepesi in Istanbul. Later on, I went to Bitlis and Van in my native region, where I lived in a cave. I remained alone with the pleasures of my spirit and conscience. That is to say, taking as my principle, I seek refuge with God from the devil and politics, I plunged into the depths of my own spiritual world. Passing my time studying the Qur'an of mighty stature started to live as the new sight. But the manifestations of divine determining sent me as an exile to other places. Then, getting the people with me to write down the inspirations born in my heart from the effulgence of the Qur'an, a number of treatises came to be written. I gave them the name of the Risale-i Nur. This name was born in my conscience, for truly they were based on the light of the Qur'an. I believe absolutely, certainly, that this was divine inspiration, and I said to those who were acting as scribes, Barakallah, for it is not possible to begrudge others the light of belief. Exchanging copies, these treatises of mine were written out by a number of believers. I formed the opinion that they were driven on by God in order to strengthen the injured belief of Muslims. I understood that, just as no believer could abstract this divine prompting, so I considered it a religious obligation to encourage it. Anyway, these treatises, which now number 130, consist entirely of discussions of the hereafter and belief, and contain no deliberate mention of politics or this world. Nevertheless, they became the object of interest of a number of opportunists. Investigations were carried out into them, and I was arrested and sent to the prisons of Eskişehir, Kastamonu, and Denizli. Trials were held. As a result, truth was manifested and justice was executed, but those opportunists never wearied of haunting us. This time, they arrested me and sent me to Afyon. I am under arrest and am being interrogated. They accuse me as follows. 1. You have founded a political society. 2. You publish ideas opposing the regime. 3. You harbor political aims. The evidence for this are 10 or 15 sentences in 2 or 3 of my treatises. Respected minister, as Napoleon said, bring me a straightforward sentence to which no second meaning can be attached, and I will have you executed for it. There is no sentence uttered by man which may not constitute an offense by having forced meanings attached to it. Especially the writings of someone like me who has reached 75 years of age, has withdrawn entirely from the life of this world, and has dedicated his life here to that of the hereafter, they will certainly be free. Being close to having a good intention, he will be fearless. It is unfair to study them simply in order to seek out offenses in them. It is nothing other than unjust. Not one of any of my 130 treatises comprises any purpose connected to the matters of this world. Proceeding from the light of the Qur'an, they are all to do with the hereafter and belief. In any event, all the trials held up to now have come to the same conclusion and have resulted in acquittals. It is therefore a shame to busy the courts unnecessarily and take innocent believers away from their work and business in the name of the country and nation. While the old side spent all his life for the sake of the happiness of the country and nation, how could the new side be preoccupied with politics when he is 75 years old and has completely withdrawn from the world? This is your opinion too. I have only one aim. It is this. At this time, as I approach the grave, I hear the hooting of the Bolshevik owls in this country, which is a Muslim land. The sound is damaging the fundamentals of belief of the Islamic world. Making them lose their belief, it binds the people, and particularly the youth, to itself. Struggling against it with all my strength, I am calling the youth and all Muslims to believe. I am struggling against these unbelieving masses. I want to enter the divine presence with this struggle of mine. This is all I do. As for those who prevent me from doing this, I am frightened that they are communists. For me, it is a sacred aim to cooperate with the forces of religion who have embraced the struggle against these enemies of belief. Release me. Let me work to reform the youth poisoned by communism and for this country's faith. Let me serve divine unity. Prisoner Said Nursi. In his name be he glorified. My dear loyal brothers, the most effective remedy for the ghastly troubles and hopelessness of the world, especially at this time, especially those smitten by disaster and the Risale-i Nur students in particular, is to console and enhearten one another and strengthen one another's moral, and like true devoted brothers to pour balm on one another's sorrows and afflictions, and with true compassion soothe one another's troubled hearts. The true brotherhood between us, which looks to the hereafter, cannot sustain anyone feeling offended or taking sides. I have placed all my trust in you and am counting on you, and you know that I have decided to sacrifice happily not only my comfort, self-respect, and honor for you, but also my very spirit, and indeed, you can see this. I swear even that the torment caused these last 8 days by the trifling incidents of 2 leading Risale-i Nur students apparently avoiding and upsetting each other instead of consoling each other has caused my spirit, heart, and mind to weep and carry out. Alas, alas, mercy, succor us, O most merciful of the merciful. Preserve us and save us from the evil of assailants from among jinn and men. Fill my brothers' hearts with loyalty, love, and fraternal feelings for each other. My brothers, as unyielding as steel, you help me. Our situation is extremely sensitive. I relied on you to such an extent that I handed over all my duties to your collective personality. So, for your part, you should help me immediately. For sure, the incident was trifling, temporary, and unimportant, but even a hair, a moth on the mainspring of our clock, or the pupil of our eye, causes pain. This point must be very important, for 3 physical explosions and 3 non-physical observations gave news of it exactly. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, my stove and the 2 drinking cups of the Fazis, Sabri and Husrev, disintegrated foretold a terrible calamity. It is absolutely essential that we practice true solidarity and disregard one another's faults, our most powerful point of support, and never take offense at a hero of the Risale-i Nur like Husrev, since he takes my place and is an important representative of the Risale-i Nur's collective personality. The last few days I felt a terrible distress and despair and said to myself in alarm, our enemies have found a way to defeat us. Both my stove and the absolutely correct observation I made in my imagination gave correct news. Beware, beware, beware. Quickly repair your solidarity, which up to now has been as strong as steel. There is a strong possibility this incident will cause more harm, especially at this juncture, to our service of the Qur'an and belief than our being sent to prison. Said Nursi. In His name be He glorified. My dear, loyal brothers, the night of the Prophets, upon whom the blessings and peace, ascension is the equivalent of a second night of power. Working this night as much as one possibly can cause us 1,000-fold increase in spiritual gains. In accordance with the mystery of spiritual partnership, on this valuable night, God willing, like some angels who glorify God with 40,000 tongues, you will perform worship and supplications with 40,000 tongues. This will yield much reward in this place of tribulation, and you will be offering thanks through your worship tonight for the coming storm involving us being reduced 1,000-fold. Together with congratulating you for your perfect caution and prudence, I give you the good news that dominical grace is being manifested most clearly for us. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, firstly, I congratulate you with all my heart and soul for the night of the Ascension. Secondly, it has been our claim for 20 years that as far as it is possible, the Risale-i Nur students do not disturb public order. As a divine favor and as a wonder resulting from your loyalty and sincerity, the harm of our imprisonment has been reduced 100-fold. For there was a strong possibility that our attackers could have taken it as a sign supporting their main claim that we disturb public order and breach security and made it a pretext for refuting our case. The mountain was made into a molehill. Otherwise, those who make mountains out of molehills concerning us could have taken advantage of it and induced many people to believe their slanders against us. Thirdly, do not worry about me. My being in the same building as you reduces all my difficulties and distress to nothing. In fact, our being gathered together here is important in numerous respects, and it is in many ways beneficial for our service of belief. Indeed, since a number of significant facts in the supplement to my written objections have been sent to the 6 departments of government and have come to their attention and influenced them to an extent it has reduced all our troubles to nothing. Fourthly, busying oneself with the Risale-i Nur both dispels distress and may be counted as 5 sources of worship. Fifthly, the previous misfortune was lessened 100-fold through the teachings of the Risale-i Nur. Otherwise, because of the sensitivity of the time and place, that single molehill would have become mountains like putting a match to gunpowder. In fact, some officials said those prisoners who listened to the lessons of the Risale-i Nur were not involved. If only everyone had listened to its teachings, nothing would have happened. As far as you can, don't allow things to escalate. Don't let anything else be added to the difficulties of prison. Like the Nurjus, the other prisoners should be brothers and not be angry at each other. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal, sincere brothers, it has become obligatory for us to practice as far as we can within the bounds of possibility the principles of the treatise on sincerity and sincerity in its true sense among ourselves and towards one another. I have received certain information that for the past 3 months, 3 men have been posted here to distance my select brothers from one another by playing on differences in ideas or temperament. They are also drawing out the court proceedings in order to make the resolute Nurjus fed up and to shake them and to make the sensitive and irresolute ones suspicious and cause them to give up their service of the Risale-i Nur. Beware, beware, don't let the self-sacrificing brotherhood and genuine love you have maintained up to now be shaken. If they are shaken only a jot, it will cause us great harm. For only a small jolt in Denizli caused Hojas like to keep their distance. Our service of the Qur'an and belief necessitates that if necessary we sacrifice our very souls for one another. True devotees do not become vexed with one another because of difficulties or irritability arising from other things. With perfect humility, modesty, and resignation, they attribute the faults to themselves and try to increase their love and sincerity. Otherwise, it will be blown up out of all proportion, possibly causing irreparable harm. Leaving it to your perspicacity, I cut this short here. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, in consequence of an important warning I received, there are now 1 or 2 tests connected with the Risale-i Nur. To try with all your might, through the lessons of the Risale-i Nur, not to fall into dispute or take up biased sides among the other unfortunate prisoners in this third school of Joseph. For there are terrible troublemakers who are concealed and are attempting to take advantage of differences, grudges, hatred, and obstinacy. Since, if necessary, the majority of our fellow prisoners manifest a vein of heroism which makes them ready to sacrifice their lives for their country, nation, and friends, surely those brave men should sacrifice their obstinacy, hatred, and enmity, which are entirely without benefit and extremely damaging in these stormy times for the good of the nation and peace and quiet here in prison. For in this way they may be saved from the corruption of those who are cowardly inculcating communism, which turns into anarchy. It may otherwise lead to significant difficulties and upsets at this time, like putting a match to gunpowder, both for 100 wretched prisoners and for the innocent Risale-i Nur students and for the town of Afyon. It might also lead to the intervention of a secret society which is here but whose roots are abroad. Since Divine Determining sent us here for their sake, and because of their happiness and ease of mind, some of us do not want to live, and we sacrifice our comfort for them and endure every hardship patiently. Certainly, it is absolutely essential that for the sake of those new brothers of ours, we do not become angry with one another and make peace like brothers, like the Denizli prisoners, and out of respect for the months of Shaban and Ramadan. In any case, we and I consider them to be within the circle of the Risale-i Nur students and include them in our prayers. Said Nursi. In His name be He glorified. My dear, loyal brothers, firstly, in accordance with the meaning of good lies in what God wishes, there are many instances of good in our trial being delayed and those of our brothers who have been released, being here on the day it recommences. Yes, since the Risale-i Nur question is of importance for the Islamic world in general and this country in particular, there should be lively gatherings such as that in order to attract everyone's attention to its truths. For in its glittering fashion, beyond all our hopes and precautions and our concealing it and our enemies belittling it and outside our wills, the Risale-i Nur teaches its truths openly to friend and foe alike. It unhesitatingly divulges its most private secrets to the most distant stranger. Since the truth is this, we should consider our trifling difficulties to be a bitter medicine like quinine, and offering thanks in patience, say, "This too will pass, God willing." Secondly, I wrote this to the supervisor of the school of Joseph, just as when I was a prisoner of war in Russia, the Bolshevik storm first erupted in the prisons, so the French Revolution first began in the prisons and with the prisoners known in the histories as vagabonds. Because of this, in both Eskişehir and Denizli, we Risale-i Nur students tried to reform the other prisoners as far as we possibly could. In both prisons, it was extremely successful. Here, it will be even more useful, for as a result of the Risale-i Nur's instruction at the sensitive time, the school that blew up was only 1/100th of what it would have been. Otherwise, the harmful outside currents which take advantage of conflict and such incidents and evade such opportunities would have ignited the gunpowder and caused a conflagration. Said Nursi. In His name be He glorified. My dear, loyal, unshakable brothers who do not become dispirited at difficulties and abandon us. Due to some physical and spiritual tribulation, my evil commanding soul was feeling sad on your account when this was imparted to me. If you had suffered these difficulties 10 times over in order to meet with all your brothers here at close quarters, it still would have been cheap. It appears necessary that, like in former times, the people of reality used to gather together and meet at least once or twice a year, the Risale-i Nur students gather together every few years in the school of Joseph. In keeping with the God-fearing and ascetic way of the Risale-i Nur and its teaching those most in need, everyone, even those who oppose it, and to allow its collective personality to speak, if it entails 1,000 difficulties and tribulations, it is of no importance whatsoever. A few of our weak brothers becoming fed up in our previous prisons and leaving the circle of the Risale-i Nur caused immeasurable loss to them, but no harm to the Risale-i Nur. More resolute and sincere students appeared in their stead. Since the trials of this world are transcended and pass swiftly, leaving us their fruits and rewards, we should trust in divine grace and offer thanks in patience. Said Nursi. In His name be He glorified. My dear, loyal brothers, firstly, send the last 2 pages in either the old letters or written by typewriter unofficially to the chairman of the court by means of someone serious you consider suitable. When you do so, give him also the following note written separately. Said thanks you and says, "They have unnailed the windows, but the persecutor does not permit any of my brothers or those who attend me to visit me. And he requests that you give him his precious, miraculous Qur'an, which is in the court, so that he can read it during these blessed months." He sent 3 Jews of that wondrous Qur'an to the Directorate of Religious Affairs as samples so that they could print it photographically. Besides that, he requested one of the Risale-i Nur collections, which is in the court, so that he can read it in his loneliness, solitary confinement, and severe distress, and it can comfort him and be a companion. In any event, 3 or 4 courts of law have seen those collections and not objected to them. Similarly, they have been much appreciated and praised by the leading scholars of Mecca, Medina, Damascus, Aleppo, and the University of Al-Azhar in Cairo, and none of them has criticized or objected to them. Said Nursi. My dear, loyal brothers, Feyzi has 2 copies of the Al-Hizb al-Nuri with him. If he is not in need of them, let one of them be sent to me, or let Mehmet Feyzi write out another copy. Also, the treatise on Ramadan and the printed supreme sign, Ayatul Kubra, are needed here. Quickly reduce the tension between you and repair the damage. Beware, beware. The slightest deviation causes enormous harm to the Risale-i Nur circle. Don't get carried away by feelings arising from the difficulties. My slow exploiting was an indication of this calamity. Said Nursi.